The fiercest Black Panther of all time. Nestled deep within the heart of the African continent, the Black Panther quietly rules over the most powerful and technologically advanced nation on the planet. For centuries now, Wakanda has remained politically detached from the outside world. The African nation-state has historically ensured the safety and prosperity of their people with staunch isolationism, looking inwards rather than outwards for solutions to the problems they faced. Throughout their entire history, the Wakandans have protected themselves from outside influence or aggression with ease. However, more recently, King T'Challa has brought his country out of the shadows, unapologetically showing the world what the Black Panther and Wakanda both stand for. But with T'Challa's departure from the throne, the mantle of the Black Panther must be taken up by someone new. And while the future of the Black Panther within the MCU is still in question, canonically T'Challa's younger sister Shuri was the one to step up to take her brother's place. So without further ado, let's learn a little bit more about Shuri, Princess of Wakanda and inheritor of the Black Panther. Who is Shuri? In one of the best and most successful superhero movies of all time, Shuri is characterized as having a youthful disregard for the complicated logistics and traditions of royalty. While her on-screen character matches the world she inhabits perfectly, in the comic Shuri is indicated as having a deep reverence and excitement at the prospect of becoming the Panther. Though Shuri's comic persona certainly retains that rebellious spirit for which the character is well known. Our very first introduction to Shuri sees the young Wakandan princess sneaking out of her royal bedroom and disobeying her mother's orders, all to attend the ceremonial challenge for the Black Panther mantle. Though it's important to note that at the time Shuri's uncle, not T'Challa, was defending his spot as the Panther. Once inside the barrier, Shuri makes a beeline for the fighting circle, intent on challenging her uncle and becoming the Black Panther herself. However, her plans were foiled when her own brother managed to defeat the Panther before Shuri even had a chance to try. This one event gives loads of insight into Shuri's psyche and the character. For one, the princess is deeply ambitious, believing herself to be an adept enough fighter and a wise enough leader to earn the mantle of the Panther. We can also see Shuri's relationship with T'Challa be defined by the siblings' proximity to the throne and the ancient title. It's certainly not that Shuri is power-hungry, she's simply confident in her own abilities and eager to show people that she is ready to lead and protect them. When a group of supervillains led by Ulysses Claw attempt to infiltrate Wakanda and steal the nation's precious stores of vibranium, Shuri pleads with her brother to allow her to check on the vibranium herself. T'Challa refuses, choosing to trust his advisors who assure him there is no cause for alarm. T'Challa and Shuri's relationship, though one of mutual love and respect, seems deeply defined by their roles in Wakandan culture hierarchy. Seeing no other option and sensing foul play, Shuri once again disobeys orders. The princess heads straight for the Great Mound, the site where vibranium is extracted by Wakandan miners. When she arrives, the entire facility is shaken when another of Claw's minions, the radioactive man, attacks with a fury, killing indiscriminately. When T'Challa and his forces are forced to fight Claw head-on, Shuri finds herself alone in the caves of the Great Mound with nothing but her wits to keep her alive. Shuri manages to lure Radioactive Man away from his objective and eventually finds the sword of the Black Knight lost deep within the mountain. Using the magic sword to cleave the supervillain in half, Shuri defeats the radioactive menace and saves Wakandan's vibranium from being poisoned forever. Not only is Shuri's intense dedication to her homeland on full display here, her sharp intuition and battle-ready strategic mind are being showcased for the first time. And though her first kill was a traumatic experience for the young woman, in that moment Shuri proved to herself and to her countrymen that the fate of Wakanda could be safely entrusted in her hands. Shuri had always been a princess who wanted to dedicate her life to serve Wakanda, but in this moment she found within herself the strength to become one of its heroes. A test of heroism. T'Challa's choice to bring Wakanda out onto the world stage would ultimately prove necessary for the survival of the planet. How many battles for the Earth would the Avengers have lost without the strength of Wakanda at their backs? But the decision inevitably came with drawbacks as well. For one, the Black Panther would be called more and more to spend time abroad rather than in the city of Wakanda itself. During one such occasion, the Black Panther and his wife Storm of the X-Men were assisting the Fantastic Four. With the King and Queen not at home, high artillery warships suddenly appeared off of Wakanda's nearest coast, threatening to unleash their barrages towards the city at any moment. In this critical hour, Shuri decides she cannot stand idly by while her country lies vulnerable. It once again falls to Wakanda's princess to defend her nation. Silently infiltrating the warships in the dead of night, Shuri and a few trusted friends intend to uncover who's behind this serious security risk and do what they can to put an end to it. Unfortunately, Shuri's stealth mission doesn't go as well as her fight with Radioactive Man, and the princess finds herself taken captive aboard one of the well-armed ships by one of Wakanda's most persistent and dangerous enemies, Killmonger. At one point during her imprisonment, Killmonger lets in a number of his minions to mercilessly beat the Chain Princess's bad attitude out of her. Shuri responds by demolishing the men in a fight, going so far as to snap one man's neck outright by wrapping her chains around his windpipe and pulling hard. While Shuri's fight in the tunnels of the Great Mound showed her fear and disgust after taking a man's life for the first time, the cold, treacherous stare she gives as she pulls the chain tight around another's neck tells us that her days of pacifism are long behind her. Eventually, Shuri would be released when Wakandan forces stormed the warships. Her time in Killmonger's prison would only prove to strengthen her resolve and passion for defending Wakanda. It would also teach her a valuable lesson about the cutthroat, evil nature of Wakanda's enemies. Lessons that she would remember when she eventually took up the mantle of the Black Panther herself. But before we see how Shuri became the Black Panther once and for all, be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss an upload, and smash that like button for more Plot Armor comics. Now, without further ado, on with the show. Taking the throne. Soon after Killmonger's attempted invasion of Wakanda and Shuri's disastrous imprisonment, T'Challa is invited to a secret meeting with Namor the Submariner, who will appear more than once in today's Wakandan history presentation. Namor offers T'Challa a chance to join a secret society of supervillains whose influence around the globe is quickly growing. The Submariner warns the Black Panther that refusing his offer would make Wakanda a prime target for the alliance of evildoers. Nevertheless, the Black Panther refuses. Exiting the ill-fated meeting, T'Challa finds none other than Dr. Doom awaiting him outside with an arsenal of Doom bots at his side. Doom has one goal: kill the Black Panther and ensure word of the villainous alliance never gets out. He very nearly succeeds. If it weren't for the heroic efforts of two Dora Milaje, T'Challa's life would have ended that very day. Instead, the king barely manages to crash land on Wakandan soil in a burning vessel and enters a life-threatening coma upon his return. With their king in a catatonic state and no interim ruler in place, the Wakandan leadership begins to panic. Rumors of an unstoppable, terrible being rampaging through the jungle soon made their way to Wakanda, and it seemed once again the future of the nation-state was in jeopardy. Eventually, the leadership decided that tradition and the safety of our nation demand a new Black Panther. Shuri was the obvious candidate to undergo the trials, though her appointment was heavily questioned by the Queen's advisors, to which the Queen replied,
"She has enjoyed the same upbringing, education, and training as T'Challa. Had he not claimed the mantle first, we would doubtlessly be addressing her as the Black Panther today."
So it came to be that Shuri, with her brother lying comatose in the hospital, would be called on by Wakanda to undergo the trials of the Black Panther. The princess dutifully ventured out to retrieve the secret herb of the Panther goddess. To do so, she would be tasked with single-handedly climbing a mountain and retrieving the plant from a den of hungry, sleeping jungle cats. Shuri excelled through the tasks, soon returning to the city to commune with the deity of the Panther itself. Though Shuri had trained all her life for this very moment, all did not go according to plan. When the princess partook of the sacred herb, her audience with the Great Panther began with a ferocity and intensity she could never have imagined. She bows in the presence of the colossal astral beast, assuring her goddess,
"I am ready. Ready to step out of my brother's shadow, ready to walk my path, ready to embrace my destiny."
The Great Panther considers Shuri for a moment, holding all of the princess's hopes and dreams in its hands as Shuri waits with bated breath. When the Panther goddess finally speaks, it does so angrily.
"Here you are, daughter of a great king and queen, sister to the greatest warrior of your nation, and instead of humbling yourself before your god, you declare your worthiness."
While Shuri is taken aback by the sudden reprimand, the Great Panther conjures the spirits of past Black Panthers, each of whom once came before the Panther goddess themselves to ask the same blessing Shuri now seeks. The great beast continues.
"What would these champions say to such a demand? How would they respond to such arrogance? The mantle of the Panther is not about entitlement, it is about sacrifice."
Shuri slumps over, tears running down her cheeks as the astral form of the Panther turns its back on her, denying Shuri not only her lifelong dream but something she had long believed to be her birthright. However harsh the Panther's rejection of Shuri, what hurt the princess most was the truth buried within the beast's words. Shuri had always seen the mantle of the Panther as one of glory, never as one of servitude. And though the Wakandan princess had long since proven herself loyal to Wakanda, her hubris and self-involvement was always at the forefront of her mind. The same arrogance that led Shuri to be captured at the hands of Killmonger would lead to her rejection by the Panther spirit. Shuri learned the hard way that the Black Panther is not just the title for the strong of body, it is one only granted to the pure of heart. When Shuri awakens from the ritual, she's distraught from her failure to procure the Panther's blessing. However, no sooner does she wake that she quickly learns Morlun, the inheritor, has revealed himself to be the rumored terror in the jungle. The Inheritors are a species of immense power and durability who consume the essence of those that draw their power from spiritual totemic sources. In short, Morlun is looking to feed on the power of the Black Panther, and he's not taking no for an answer. Despite their best efforts, it seems nothing the Wakandan military throws at him seems to be able to slow the hulking monster down. With T'Challa still comatose and Wakanda in its most vulnerable state in memory, Shuri's failure in the face of the Panther goddess seems the final nail in the coffin for her beloved nation. With no Panther to protect them, how can Wakanda hope to stand up to the dreaded Morlun? But just as the Wakandan leadership resigns themselves to defeat, Shuri suddenly realizes why the Panther god spared her life after rejecting her blessing. She and the Wakandan magic user Zawavati concoct a dangerous and risky plan. As Morlun effortlessly rips through the final guards and stands before T'Challa's hibernation chamber, the monster is prepared to snuff the life from the king of Wakanda once and for all. But at the last possible moment, Shuri attacks from the shadows with a vengeance, donning her traditional Black Panther regalia for the very first time. Even without the power she sought from the Panther goddess, Shuri is prepared to fight and die in the name of her country and to save her brother's life. Shuri knows surviving against such a foe as Morlun is all but impossible, but by being prepared to sacrifice her own life for Wakanda, Shuri has finally put aside her arrogance once and for all. As she engages the dreaded inheritor, Shuri has one goal in mind: keep Morlun away from T'Challa. The princess is prepared to give everything she has to keep her prey contained and distracted for as long as possible. At some point during their skirmish, Morlun senses something shift in Shuri. He utters, well. There's more to you than meets the eye, child," and becomes increasingly intent on capturing and killing Shuri. This makes the princess's job all the easier, as she lures him away from her comatose brother and out into the open. Taking to the skies on a hoverbike and ensnaring Morlun with a net, Shuri hauls the inheritor across the plains of Wakanda. That is, until her quarry manages to shred the lines and begins crawling towards the cockpit. Morlun screams as he nears closer and closer to Shuri.
"I would have killed you quickly, child, but now I will make you suffer."
But before Morlun can reach the princess, she leaps from the vessel and intentionally crashes the hoverbike into the ground with the inheritor still aboard. A stunned and injured Shuri stands amidst the wreckage and sees an unhurt Morlun still trudging even closer. Morlun backhands Shuri through the walls of a nearby hut where Queen Mother and the Wakandan magician Zawavati are lying in wait. As the monster enters, he gloats, "Well now, looks like I have to finish off the Panther lineage right here." But even as Morlun grabs Shuri's throat to choke the life from her, Zawavati casts a great and powerful spell, banishing Morlun to the plains beyond. When the dust settles, Shuri wonders why she was left alive by the Great Panther when
Unworthy candidates die, eaten by the Panther god himself.
Zawavati is the only one to finally explain,
The Panther god is subtle and wise. When you failed the first trial, you assumed you failed entirely. Yet you threw yourself into the fight knowing that it was probably a suicide mission. Not for glory, but for your people. And in doing so, you became the Black Panther.
The change that Morlun sensed inside of Shuri was indeed the Panther god's gift being offered in her time of need. And in that moment, Shuri once and for all inherited the mantle of the Black Panther. Her time had finally come. Doom War. Shuri's time as the Princess Regent of Wakanda would test the new ruler in ways she had never trained for before. She would be asked to give rousing speeches, engage in diplomatic meetings, and even defend against assassination attempts. But her first real trial as a ruler would be from none other than the man that beat her brother into a coma. Dr. Doom has his eyes on Wakanda, and Shuri has her eyes set on Doom. Believing Namor responsible for hospitalizing T'Challa, Shuri searches the globe for the submariner. On her way, the new ruler uncovers a mysterious plot relating to something called Destiny. The first link Shuri finds to Destiny is a Wakandan expat who blows himself up rather than give up his associates. Confused but still focused on locating Namor, Shuri gets a suit upgrade before confronting the Prince of Atlantis once and for all. Accusing Namor of attacking T'Challa, Shuri attacks him without hesitation, demanding answers from the mutant. Shuri eventually loses the fight, though the Fantastic Four step in before Namor can do anything drastic. Mr. Fantastic explains to the two clashing rulers that they've been tricked. Dr. Doom, it seems, has been pitting the two against one another to cover up his true plan, a coup of Wakanda using nanites to infect and control members of the Wakandan leadership. Though Shuri and the Fantastic Four discover the plot just in time, they are too late to stop Doom's plans. The Latvian monarch imprisons Storm under false charges and plans to rule Wakanda from the shadows, utilizing Wakandan military to keep Shuri from entering the Golden City as he slowly begins siphoning off Wakanda's vibranium stores. With nowhere left to turn, Shuri and mostly healed T'Challa ask the X-Men for assistance in rescuing their old teammates Storm and helping the two Black Panthers reclaim their country. Though Cyclops cannot officially sanction an invasion of foreign soil, the X-Men agree to assist the Wakandan royals in a covert mission to free their homeland. With Nightcrawler's help, Shuri is able to take the Destiny Council by surprise, murdering all of the traitorous Wakandans where they stand in a brilliant yet merciless act of subterfuge. With the element of surprise officially lost, Shuri and her brother, with the X-Men at their back, launch a full-scale offensive on the Wakandan capital, brute forcing their way closer and closer towards Doom. Though they were greatly outnumbered, the invasion party is bolstered when the Dora Milaje joined the fight on behalf of T'Challa, offering significant power spike to the heroes' combined forces. As Shuri, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine battle their way through the dense tunnels of the Wakandan base, the two X-Men begin to take note of Shuri's anger and ferocity in battle, indiscriminately cutting down those she once ruled over. Wolverine tells the Black Panther,
Careful, kid. Take it from me. You don't want to lose yourself.
to which Shuri replies,
Lose myself? I have finally found myself.
When T'Challa finally locates Doom, the Doctor uses Storm as a hostage to keep the former Black Panther from taking him down. However, Doom, as usual, is 2 steps ahead of the game. When Storm is thrown into the arms of T'Challa and the great and terrible Doctor teleports away, T'Challa is left to realize that Wakanda's precious vibranium stores have been wiped clean. Shuri had won back her kingdom, but at the cost of its most valuable resource. The rest of the Doom War would be fought outside of Wakanda's borders, and Shuri would be side by side with her friends bravely taking down Doombots every step of the way. Dr. Doom's coup and the subsequent liberation of Wakanda taught the young ruler a great many things. For one, it taught her that Wakanda's power will always be coveted by those seeking power. The Doom War showed the new Black Panther the consequences of not remaining on high alert. And though Shuri would ultimately spare the life of Victor Von Doom following his defeat, she would learn from the experience that mercy is a luxury the Black Panther cannot afford. Catastrophe strikes. Despite all the hardships Shuri would face during her rule, no event would be so catastrophic as the sacking of Wakanda by, you guessed it, Namor the Submariner. During the events of Avengers vs. X-Men, the ruler of Atlantis would be granted a sliver of the Phoenix Force, supercharging his already formidable power set and making him one of the most powerful beings on the planet. In his attempt to track down and murder the Scarlet Witch, Namor conducts a brutal and merciless invasion of Wakanda where the Avengers are being given safe harbor. Launching an immense tidal wave at the capital city itself, Namor and his Atlantean legions take the city by surprise and proceed to slaughter thousands of Wakandan citizens. Though the city's defenses were robust, they were no match for a Phoenix-powered Namor and his legions of submarine soldiers. Shuri would rule over one of the darkest days in all of Wakandan history, and she would never forgive nor forget the perpetrator. The Atlantean attack on Wakanda led to an extended Cold War between the two nation-states, one that extended past the Avengers vs. X-Men event and would continue even after the Phoenix Force had left Namor. During a meeting of the Royal Council, Shuri informs her advisors that Atlantis had proposed a peace treaty with Wakanda, an olive branch intended to quell the two nations' hostility towards one another before it leads to any more bloodshed. Shuri decides this show of weakness from the Atlanteans represents the perfect opportunity for Wakanda to strike with the element of surprise. In that same meeting, the Princess Regent of Wakanda would officially declare war on Atlantis. The Atlanteans had thrown the first punch, and Shuri would be damned before letting them get the better of her a second time. Taking care to lure Namor out of his city before attacking, Wakanda let loose its entire arsenal on the submerged capital city of Atlantis, effectively leveling the city and leaving Namor to tend to a city of the dead. Though an unexpected attack from Thanos would temporarily pause hostilities between Shuri and Namor, their hatred for one another would never cool. When Thanos' assault was eventually repelled, representing the loss of thousands more Wakandan citizens, Shuri approaches her brother to ask where T'Challa was during the counterattack. T'Challa had been off with the Illuminati, who we happen to have a whole video on, when Wakanda was attacked a second time by the armies of Thanos. Unable to tell his sister the truth without divulging dangerous and terrible secrets, T'Challa is forced to stay silent in the wake of her questions. That is, until the Dora Milaje speaks up for him. The Dora Milaje accused T'Challa of lies, saying,
You have lost your way. You have lost your soul.
And breaking their spears upon their knees, signifying their relinquishment of their post. The Dora Milaje tells Shuri that T'Challa has been meeting with Prince Namor secretly and often, even since Wakanda has been at war with Atlantis. Namor, as another member of the Illuminati, has indeed had numerous meetings with T'Challa since the sacking of Wakanda, a transgression that is too much for Shuri to bear. She banishes her brother from the Golden City and promises that their conversation is far from over. The anger in her voice is palpable, and T'Challa is left alone, the only Black Panther ever to be banished from Wakanda itself. The constant war and death that surround Wakanda during Shuri's rule hardened the once hopeful princess into a resolute and unforgiving monarch. Shuri's only wish was to see her country flourish like it once had, free from misery and tragedy of war that now seems so commonplace. Yet, in order to protect her people, Shuri found herself becoming more and more dispassionate in the wake of so much tragedy. Wakanda's queen could not be seen as merciful and compassionate with enemies lurking around every corner. It would not be an overstatement to say that Shuri ruled Wakanda during the most tumultuous and war-torn times in the nation-state's history, and the experience led the once arrogant princess to sacrifice everything in the name of defending it. Her innocence, her brother, and even her life. Death and resurrection. Though betrayal and war would tear the siblings apart, they would be brought back together by necessity when an even greater danger threatened Wakanda and the entire planet. Marvel's Secret Wars event of 2015 is one of the most ambitious and complicated crossover events the company has ever published. In short, the story arc involved Earths from alternate universes colliding into one another, destroying everything and everyone on both planets. In order to stop the unthinkable, the Illuminati, T'Challa included, set out to create a bomb capable of destroying an entire planet, with the not very heroic intent of destroying whichever Earth is destined to collide with their own. But when a group of supervillains calling themselves the Cabal got involved, things go even further off the rails very quickly. For one, the Cabal begin mass-producing the planet-destroying bombs and storing them in Wakanda itself. With their targets temporarily aligned once more, T'Challa and Black Panther Shuri set out with a small battalion of Wakandan war dogs to stealthily break into the weapons stores and transport them out of Wakanda and far away from the Cabal's treacherous reach. When they reach the storeroom, however, they find they've been duped. The inhuman villain Maximus waits patiently for them, protecting the planet-shattering explosives behind a force barrier. It's then that the Thanos henchman Proxima Midnight also steps out of the shadows to murder the heroes. It becomes very clear that a trap had been set for the two Black Panthers, and they fall right into it. Without hesitation, one of their war dogs sacrifices himself to let T'Challa and Shuri escape into the jungle. But as the prince calls Reed Richards to teleport him and his sister out, Shuri makes a heroic decision. She decides to stay behind to keep Proxima Midnight busy so that her brother's teleportation cannot be tracked by the Cabal. Shuri looks tearily up at T'Challa's face and asks,
I can trust you to finish this?
to which he responds,
Then you have my word, sister. I swear it.
As T'Challa leaves the battlefield, they share only one more sentiment.
I will miss you, T'Challa.
The Black Panther tells her brother.
I will see you soon, Shuri,
He replies. Shuri turns around to face Proxima Midnight and her armies, knowing full well this will be her final battle. She battles her way through as many enemies as she can, with dignity and honor befitting a Black Panther. Though Shuri's death wouldn't be shown explicitly, T'Challa would later see her spirit standing amongst the many Black Panthers of the past, confirming that the Princess of Wakanda had indeed died valiantly in battle that day. However, even her death would not be the end of Shuri's story. When T'Challa returns as an undisputed ruler of Wakanda, he faces many political and social troubles amongst his people. However, his mind is distracted by something even more important to him than ruling his people, saving his sister. T'Challa is wrecked by guilt from how his actions tore his relationship with his sister apart before her death, and he vows to use Wakanda's incredible technology as well as his own spiritual attachments to save her. While T'Challa is hard at work saving her body, Shuri's soul travels onward to the Djalia, a plane of Wakandan memory. The princess spends her time in the Djalia hearing the stories of Wakandan legends and absorbing great wisdom from a spirit in the form of her mother. When it comes time for Shuri to leave Djalia, Shuri reflects,
There is not much time left, and I have so much to say.
Meanwhile, on the material plane, T'Challa and the mutant Manifold, a teleporter of Aboriginal Australian descent, begin final preparations to travel into Djalia and rescue Shuri from the state between life and death. As they travel between worlds, T'Challa tells Manifold,
I would give my life for my nation, but I will not give the life of my sister. I will not yet again be parted from my own blood.
After everything they had been through together, from defeating Dr. Doom during the Doom War to Shuri banishing T'Challa from Wakanda forever, after all that time, the bond between the two siblings refused to break. Their love for one another could weather any storm, and from that devotion, T'Challa decides to attempt a miracle. And though T'Challa was prepared to fight death itself to bring Shuri back from the land of the living dead, he soon peacefully awoke beside Manifold in a burst of blinding light. Worried for a moment that his mission had failed, T'Challa whips around at the sound of a familiar voice and sees his sister Shuri, Black Panther, and Princess Regent of Wakanda standing before him. Who knows where Shuri will go next with her new lease on life, but one thing's for sure, wherever she finds herself, she'll be kicking butt and taking names. In the meantime, we over here at Plot Armor Comics will be waiting with bated breath to see her back on the big screen. Well, that does it for this video, everyone. I've been Morse Code, you've been awesome, and on behalf of everyone here at Plot Armor Comics, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.